Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Joelle Firsty. I am the co-founder and CEO of Tribute. Welcome to our August edition of The Good Chat. The Good Chat is a monthly 1-hour conversation hosted by the Tribute team. Subject varies from fashion culture to history, consumption, production, and sustainability. Our objective is to recreate the kind of encounters we miss from real life tribute, but online, and engage with our community on subjects that interest them. Today's subject is ethical styling, and I'm honored to have with us Kamrin. Thank you, Kamrin, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
She will be in conversation with Gabrielle, Tribute's communication manager. We will have a 1-hour discussion and we'll be able to take some questions at the end if there are any questions. We ask you all to keep yourselves on mute. And thank you again for joining us. I'll let Gabby do the introduction.
Hello, thank you, Joelle. Good evening, everyone. First, I like to go a little bit more in depth with Kamrin. She is a sustainable stylist and sustainable fashion blogger, and she's founder of Naturally Cam. So first to start off, Kamrin, will you kind of explain what Naturally Cam is?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So Naturally Cam is it's a blog and a brand focused on affordable, accessible, and sustainable fashion for the working woman. So that's why I wear a lot of blazers, and my friends have dubbed me the Blazer Queen because my primary focus has always been workwear. So all of my pre-pandemic, all of my looks posted were in real time. Like these are looks I wore to the office. So that's kind of where the basis for Naturally Cam is.
Okay. So as you mentioned, you are like vintage queen. So how did you get into vintage clothing? How did you get started in ethical styling?
Well, I started as a regular stylist, just picking things up because I've always thrifted like in my personal life, but when it came to styling other people, I would originally always go the fast fashion route because oftentimes at the time I thought that was easier, and as time went on, I'm just like, okay, well, why don't I just not only just thrift for myself, but thrift for clients that I have as well. And so I kind of flipped my styling to the sustainability aspect styling other people probably about 3 years ago. But I've always been like sustainable for my fashion.
Okay.
Like I've been thrifting from an early age. Like I started thrifting when I was in high school, and I started doing it more heavily my late teens, early 20s, because I was a broke college student. I feel like a lot of people have that story.
Yeah. So are you have always were you born and raised in DC?
Yeah, so I was born in Northwest DC. I've always grown up in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is right on the DC, Maryland line. And I've always lived, worked, gone to school right in this area. Well, I went away to college and then came back, but I've always been in this area. So it's a rare find, considering everything that's been going on in the city in recent years, to find people who are legitimately born and raised here in this area.
Mm-hmm. So like, how has DC or even like Maryland, how has that influenced your style and your styling and vintage shopping? It's a very places around.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that DC in general has influenced my personal style in that, because I used to be more into, before I really found my lane, because vintage is my lane, before I really found my lane, I was more into like urban kind of, like the Instagram model, Instagram baddie. I had like my Instagram baddie phase where I was wearing a lot of urban clothes, because like the fashion scene here, like on the surface, is very much like New Balances, North Face, Helly Hansen, it's very urban. So I would say probably where the vintage comes in, I've always had an appreciation for older things. And I feel like with vintage styling, there's more of a refinement there, I've noticed. I feel like vintage style fits best with my personality because I'm an old soul. And so I like old things. So that's why I'm always gravitating towards older styles of clothing, because the lines are smoother, the tailoring is excellent, the quality is so much better than the way they make clothes now. And it's healthier to just wear old things as opposed to buying a ton of new things.
Yeah. How do you define like ethically sourced material?
So I define ethically sourced material as something that was farmed sustainably. The people who work on the garment are paid fair wages. It's not what am I trying to say? Like it's fair working conditions. The materials themselves, I guess I'm talking about an ethically sourced garment, but I guess ethically sourced materials are items that are found responsibly. So like the farmers are paid a respectable wage, the workers are paid a respectable wage. The way that the process itself is done in a way that's not detrimental to the environment. Like it's responsible environmentally, it's responsible from a social justice standpoint. It's all around ethical sourcing doesn't just involve the environment to me. It also it involves the whole process.
I agree. Like, because I know, like, for me personally, is like kind of same thing. Like, vintage is kind of always in your life, always had it around. But then there's a point where you become aware about like sustainable fashion, like you said, what ethically sourced means. You know that it's beyond the environment. When did you come across that revelation for yourself?
Probably like about 3 years ago. Because I used to really be, because even not even just for like styling people, but I would occasionally buy, from the fast fashion brands because I'm like, oh, it's right here, it's cheap, there's so many of this thing. But then when you get in, when you keep in mind and you really start to think about, okay, well, yeah, this is a $20 t-shirt, but did this come out of a sweatshop? Did the people who made this t-shirt, can they eat every day? Like, are they being paid fairly? Are they being treated fairly? Is material this shirt is made out of ethically obtained? Are a bunch of these shirts in the trash at the end of the season by the time, so I guess, and probably about 3 years ago, I started being more mindful with my spending, and I'm like, okay, well, I mainly want to focus on buying from brands or arenas that are better for the environment and think about the overall big picture.
So for that transition, because usually when you you say, okay, I'm going to switch. And of course you're aware of the secondhand and vintage markets and how that's affordable. But then you look at brands that, are transparent and they do walk the talk, but then you see the prices. How do you how do you kind of like move through that, shift your closet planning or your styling to kind of keep up with that, not exactly keep up with it, but how do you not get discouraged?
Well, I mean, that's honestly why that's a big part of why my brand is what it is as well. Because even for me personally, I started thrifting because I was broke and I couldn't really afford the more expensive brands. And so in turn, even with some of these sustainable brands, the average working person doesn't always have $300 to spend on a shirt or $300. Usually my focus is on workwear. So I'm looking from like a working woman standpoint. there's a way to be sustainable, there's a way to be ethical without having to be expensive. And so that's why my primary focus has always been on thrifting, because it's like, okay, well, you can, now granted, there is such a thing as overconsumption within the thrift store as well, but that's a totally different conversation. But I've always kept in mind, as far as like keeping up with it, like, okay, well, if I don't have Reformation money, I'm going to go to the thrift store. And oftentimes, depending on which store you go to, you can find a lot of these same sustainable brands like secondhand. So they're not going to be at the regular retail price. So you can still shop that brand, just not necessarily at that brand's price point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you kind of should be able to, you should find them in secondhand. People aren't throwing them away.
Yeah.
So to your personal style, what are the absolute must-haves in your closet? And I'm guessing one of them is a blazer.
Yes, hands down. You will not find me, except in the summer, because it's too hot for blazers right now, but you will not find me without a blazer. I always have blazers on. Let's see, fall is coming. So if we're talking about my fall capsule wardrobe, I'm actually going to write a blog post about this coming soon, but I love a good pair of boots. If you get a good pair of leather boots, or faux leather, if that's your thing, but if you buy leather, try to find them vintage. You know, it makes me feel a little better, like if I'm not buying like brand new leather, but leather lasts longer. Those, like a good pair of boots will last you for years to come, seasons to come. I also love a very well-made pair of denim. I love a good mom jean. I tend to wear more skinnies in the fall so that I can tuck them into my boots, but I love a good mom jean year round most of the time. And I would say for fall, specifically a leather skirt or faux leather, vegan leather. Because they're really versatile. You can honestly make an outfit out of a blazer, boots, and a leather skirt. Like that's honestly my work uniform in the fall outside of the pandemic. Like some kind of blazer, some kind of skirt, and boots. And a turtleneck. I love turtlenecks. Okay, yes, turtlenecks too. So naturally Cam's uniform, turtlenecks, blazers, jeans, and boots.
Okay.
And leather skirts.
Can I just say how difficult it is to just put together a capsule collection for yourself and say like this is, because as a stylist I imagine that you want to play around also, you know. So thanks for that, because I found it very difficult to limit myself.
No problem. I mean, that's the thing. I think that because I you know, if you scroll down my feed, I love color and I love experimenting with color, but the key for me is I generally tend to stay in that uniform. So I'll have a blazer, I'll have like maybe five or six blazers in different colors, but it's all a blazer. Or I'll have boots in different colors, but they're all boots. Like they're all within that framework for me. Like, okay, I like denim, I like boots, I like blazers, I like turtlenecks. You got to have basics. So like, I feel like turtlenecks, t-shirts, bodysuits kind of fall in the basics category because you can wear them year round. You more so wear turtlenecks in the fall and winter, but in spring and summer, I love a good white t-shirt. I feel like as long as you can play around with as many colors as you want, as long as you stay within that box of, okay, what do you wear most of the time? What are you going to wear the most? So, okay, well, if I wear a lot of blazers, so if I get this blazer, let me make sure I don't have anything else in my closet that's that color. And then, so that way you're going to get a wearing out of it, as opposed to if I buy an orange dress, I'm not really a dress person. I know I don't like dresses, so there's no point in me having it in my closet. It's just going to sit there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So where do you find these leather skirts and your boots and around secondhand? Because I need to go.
The thrift store.
Which ones though? Like, what are some good spots?
Okay, well, DC Goodwill is always a great spot. Honestly, like in my opinion, DC Goodwill is the best for blazers. If you go to, they have great, fantastic blazers. Okay.
Yeah.
You can also find a lot of good leather in there as well. It depends on the season. I was in maybe last week and I found a really good leather jacket, but I put it back because I didn't need it. Like I have enough leather jackets in my closet, but you can find a lot of good leather jackets and blazers in Goodwill. So even if you wanted to do like a leather blazer, because that's actually trending for fall, leather blazers. As far as boots go, previously I found a lot of really good shoes at Goodwill. I've also found good shoes at Value Village. Value Village is another good store. If you want, Value Village is good for coats.
Okay.
Like I've gotten a lot of amazing coats from Value Village. Like hands down, they have the best coat section. Let's see, for leather skirts, I found a lot of really good vintage at Second Avenue. Have you heard of Second Ave?
No, I have not.
Yeah, there's a Second Ave in Laurel, Maryland. Yeah. They have a really good vintage section, and particularly I've seen a lot of, I haven't been recently, but I've seen a lot of leather skirts in there in my day. So if you want to find a good leather skirt, that's your best bet.
I've always been like interested in how, like you're saying, you find a lot of good leather skirts here, you find a lot of good coats, and you just always like, how do you think like the environment or like the cities that these shops are in kind of influence the secondhand, the clothes that you're seeing in there?
Oh yeah.
Kind of like
Oh yeah.
that was there, or how do you like how do you explain that from, as a shopper or someone who's into ethical fashion and has always
Mhm.
been, shopping vintage, how do you connect the city with the clothes that you're finding?
Well, I have found that because I also tend to, even just outside the DC area, I have gone thrifting when I've traveled to other states. Like I've been thrifting on the West Coast as well. I feel like the area that you're in largely contributes to what you'll find in the thrift store. So like for example, when I went to San Francisco last holiday season, pre-pandemic, you go into San Francisco, there's a lot of really good vintage in San Francisco. And I was really surprised. Like I went to this one vintage shop. I don't remember what it was called. I'll remember it after this call is over, what the name of that shop was. But there's a lot of really good vintage in San Francisco as opposed to a lot of the stores that I've been to here. There's good vintage here, but there isn't as, it's like in San Francisco, there's like hordes of it. Like people are just sitting on all these vintage clothes. And like another example would be like you find a lot of Western clothes in thrift stores in Las Vegas, California, Nevada, California. Naturally so, it's the West Coast.
Yeah.
So, as opposed to here, you're going to find a lot more leather. You're going to find, it's really dependent on geographical region, and I feel like in a lot of cases socioeconomic backgrounds as well, because I've noticed a lot of the thrift stores in DC proper, like if you go further into the city, you'll find a lot of higher end merchandise in the thrift store, like in Northwest, as opposed to a lot of the thrift stores that I frequent in Maryland. You get a lot, like the prices are lower and you get a lot of like lower tier brands as well.
Okay.
Like you see a lot of Forever 21, you see a lot of H&M. It has a lot to do with geography and socioeconomic status as far as what you'll find in the thrift store in any given area, and also the culture of the area. So like thrift stores in DC have a lot of workwear. Like Buffalo Exchange, for example, is like heavily workwear, like all blazers, all because of where it is. Like it's right on 14th Street, so it makes a ton of sense. Like the heart of the bougiest part of the city, where all the office people work, you're gonna find office attire, as opposed to like I live not too far from. I live in Northeast. I live not too far from the Goodwill in Northeast,
Yeah.
you find more of a combination. Like there's workwear in there, but there's also a lot of like casual clothing. That's also a really good store for home decor, sidebar. Like that's the best thrift store for home decor. But you know, to answer the question, to the original point, it has to do with socioeconomic background, the culture of the area, geography. Like there are a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah. So, what are some tips you would give to someone starting out on their ethical fashion journey?
Okay.
Get on to the capsule collection. That was some really good tips you gave.
Yeah,
What about
thanks.
someone just like starting out, fresh?
Okay, well, I will say to that, to a newbie, figure out what your style is. So, what do you like wearing the most? And you make a list. So, like, if I were new and I were to make a list of my first thrift store trip, I'd be like, okay, I'm Kamrin. I like blazers. I like jeans. I like white pumps. I have a really big thing for white pumps. So you make a list of like 5 to 6 things that you really like. And for each of those 5 to 6 things, you have to think about, okay, so for a blazer, if I were to find a blazer, can I think of at least 4 or 5 different ways I can style this item?
Mm-hmm.
As far to determine whether or not it belongs on the list. This is before you even go to the store, okay? You're making this list and you're like, okay, well, if I can't figure out how to style this thing, like I love a leopard skirt, for fall, like leopard skirts, like the silk kind of satin leopard skirts. Okay, so if I buy one, can I style that with more than just a pair of boots and a sweater? If I can't find at least 3 to 4 ways to style any one item, I would take it off the list. Because the list is like the beginning of your capsule collection. So if you take the list to the store with you, then you already know, okay, well, these are the 5 things that I'm looking for. So I'm going to shop within these 5 categories so that I'm not just grabbing every single thing in the store and wasting time, wasting money, and taking opportunities away from other people who might actually need the clothes you're buying. It saves you from overconsumption as well if you go into it with a list.
Yeah. So another thing that people do when they're starting out is they'll just, throw out all their clothes, which is not the best.
Mm-mm.
So how do you, what's your tip for that? And how do you also, like, when your clothes are like, they're done, what do you do with them?
Okay, this is interesting timing because I just moved recently. So I had to do like a big closet clean out before I moved to my home earlier this year. What I'll do is, and I try to do this like twice a year, I'll go through my closet, and if I see something, I'm like, okay, if I have never worn this item, why have I never worn it? Why did I buy it? Was this an emotional purchase? Or did I actually need this? If I haven't worn it at all, it automatically goes in the giveaway pile.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something that I've worn before, but I haven't worn it in over a year, then it's like, okay, well, clearly I like this item enough to wear it, but why haven't I worn it in over a year? Did I just not get around to it? Then if it means, okay, if I didn't get around to it, that means I have too many other things in my closet. So if I want to keep this thing, I have to get rid of something else. So I don't think the solution is to throw all your clothes away. I even operate like that now with my thrifting. Like this happened last week. I'm not buying anything new for my fall wardrobe. But if I do, I have to get rid of something. So there's a new pair of boots I want. So I'm going to get rid of 3 pairs.
Wow.
Just to avoid, just to avoid overconsumption and to avoid, okay, well, if you want that thing bad enough, you have to give something up. just to kind of keep the capsule wardrobe rotating. So it's like, okay, I really like boots, so maybe I might not like this pair here. I can get another pair, but I have to give something up. So I've got 2 pairs of boots in my giveaway pile right now.
So Cameron, when you say get rid, of something, can you just again explain what's the best way? So do you send it back to Goodwill? Do you give it? What are
So depending on what the item is, now if it's like handbags, I'll almost always like try to swap them or give them away. I know my mom loves going through my handbag collection when I want to give things away. So I'll usually let my mom have my handbags, and whatever is left, I will give to Goodwill. I almost always give things back to Goodwill because I believe that sustainability is cyclical. And so just as much as I have found amazing things at the thrift store, I also like to give back. Like I have to return the favor. Like as many opportunities as I've received from the thrift store, as many blessings as I've received from the thrift store, I have to return that blessing to someone else and be that blessing to someone else. So I have a box right here of items that I'm always planning a giveaway box.
That's beautifully said, by the way.
Thank you. You know, I mean, it's true. Like, you know, I always feel like you have to be a blessing to someone else to return the favor. Like, you can't just take all the time without giving back.
Yeah. So, kind of, since Tribute is kind of new, we're like 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Congratulations.
To the fashion scene in DC. Do you see a shift in like ethical fashion with a shop like Tribute around in DC? Do you see like more people coming up that kind of are, you know, walking the same talk as you and just
for sure
like be
for sure. I definitely think with more stores coming around like Tribute, it's definitely brought the sustainable fashion game up to the next level. So it's not just, I mean, because there's thrifting, like there's always, like thrifting has always been there. It's always a go-to, but there's a difference between going to a thrift shop versus going to a well-curated, carefully curated shop, you know, where you can find a lot of very unique pieces. Mm-hmm. So I feel like with the rise of secondhand shops or ethical shops like Tribute, it's definitely raised the bar as far as like just because you shop secondhand or you shop at the thrift store doesn't mean you have to look like it. You know that stereotype or like, oh, you look like you dress from the thrift store. Like, you know, like I feel like over the years, and especially with more smaller shops coming along, we're breaking down the stereotype where it's like, okay, yeah, I thrift most of my clothes, but that doesn't mean that I look cheap.
Yeah.
Or that doesn't mean that I look barely put together. You know what I mean? Like it's style has very little to do with the price tag of your items, and it has everything to do with each individual person's perspective.
Yeah.
And so I feel like with stores like Tribute, it's just more of an opportunity to find more unique pieces and to really up that styling game.
I like that because that is something, especially growing up, you know, I think clothes were always associated with like your social economic status or you know, what do you have and what you don't have. But now especially with Instagram, you know, it's the Instagram days of fashion where it's like you wear an outfit to say that you own this, you know, Balenciaga sweatsuit. So I like that you bring up that because that's not something I hear often where there's this shift of, you know, clothes from dollar signs to like inner beauty, you know? So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So you recently had a visit to Tribute.
I did?
Yes, and you know, shopped around a little and
Wait, I can't really hear you.
Oh, yeah, you shopped around a bit and created some, took our style challenge. So
I did.
Yes, and you did a great job. Let's check out the video.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Right? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kamrin Brown. I'm a sustainable fashion stylist and influencer. I have been challenged by Tribute Collective to pick out 5 outfits for 5 different scenarios. My first outfit of choice is what I would wear for my Zoom meetings. Now, I, like a lot of people in America, are working from home, and I like to be comfortable while I'm working from home, so I chose this jumpsuit because it's super comfortable, and I also like to draw as little attention to myself during the Zoom call as possible, so I don't want to wear bright colors, so I picked black, but I do like to keep it interesting, so I put a scarf around my neck, kind of to wear as like an ascot. I wanted to tie it in the front initially, but I think it looks better tied this way, don't you? So both the scarf and the earrings are by Cleopatra Blink. The scarf is 100% silk, and the boiler suit I'm wearing is a mixture of organic cotton and linen made in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the look I chose for a girls' night out. My girls and I are fairly chill. We're all in our late 20s, so our nights out recently consist of sipping wine and picking someone's house to sit at and watch movies. So, very laid back girls' night out outfit. The dress is by Osei Duro, the earrings are by Cara Larga, and they're recycled cotton. And the bag is by Learn Bag and Sun Bag, and this is reclaimed leather.
Yeah. 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 Right? Yeah. 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 Right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I picked this for a super chill walk around the city because this is a totally linen set, and linen is a breathable fabric, particularly since it's been really hot in DC lately. So you're already going to be hot with your mask on, so you need air to circulate the rest of your body. And you know, it's super relaxed, super comfortable. I'm all about being comfortable right now during this pandemic. So the earrings I have are vintage. This is a Kerr linen set. The bag is by Nostos, and the straw bracelet is by Cara Larga.
Don't put you down. We don't put you down.
So I chose this outfit for my virtual / Zoom date because it's all about looking really nice from pretty much the stomach up for me because I'm short. Most people it would be like here up, but I'm little. I have a vintage ring on my finger. This one's mine, also vintage. The silk dress is 100% silk and it's vintage. Oh, Sisu, not vintage. Sorry, Sisu. And then the shoes are vintage as well. And this is my grocery store look. I'm trying to go for a quick and easy, effortlessly chic look. So we have boyish jeans. We have a matte and matte crossbody bag. I'm really big on crossbody bags right now because of the pandemic. And you want to be hands-free when you're walking around, so you're not contaminating everything by reaching into your bag, and, you know. So, and the shoes are Moat. I think very casual sneaker. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've been able to get some inspiration on how to dress sustainably for the fall season and beyond. You can buy all these pieces at Tribute or at their website, thisistribute.com. Also, check me out on naturallycam.com. My name is Kamrin. I'm a sustainable stylist and influencer.
Put you down.
Thank you, Cameron, for coming in to do that.
Thank you for having me. I loved it.
I had a quick question actually. It's regarding, I don't know if, like, we didn't touch upon trends. I know that when we talk about fashion, something that is big is I have to follow this trend, and in order to follow a trend, you have to buy new most of the time. What do you have to say about that? Because again, I mean, I think we discussed that in like the second hand and the vintage, because we say that fashion is cyclical, and stuff that are on trend today were actually on trend 70 like the 70s, not 70 years ago. In the 70s, and the blazer, for example, I mean, for me, blazers, I remember my mom with the blazers, and that very masculine look women started wearing in the 80s to assert themselves, and because they started to be like the working girls. So yeah, what's your kind of take on that whole idea that fashion, is related to trend, and how you can detach that from vintage is not on trend or secondhand is not on trend?
I have 2 points for that. In general, personally, I don't follow trends. I like to wear what I like to wear. But if we were to go by what's trending, anything that you've seen or anything that you think is new, it isn't. Because all the trends, like Joelle said, all the trends that are trending now have been seen at some point within the last 20 to 25 years. So 9 times out of 10, you can find something that's trending right now in the thrift store right now. Like I've had a lot of experience with that, particularly with oversized blazers. Oversized blazers have definitely had a resurgence in the last 5 to 6 years, season after season. But I will say to that, there are a lot of like the fast fashion brands making their versions of oversized blazers with the shoulder pads, where, the gag is, the tee is, you go to the men's section and you get the real oversized blazers with the real shoulder pads. Or, you can get the real vintage blazers. My opinion is why buy the trend when 9 times out of 10, you can find the real thing in the thrift store. Like, this is something that has already happened. Trends now are just biting off of what was popular in the past. So you could just buy the real past thing or vintage thing in the thrift store, and you'd be right on trend. You'd look like everyone else if that's what you wanted. Now, personally, I don't really like to look like everyone else. I like to wear what I like to wear. There are some trends that I think are cool that I might try, and I'll try to find like a thrift store equivalent or something really close to it, or if it's something that I can modify myself to make more like a current trend, then I'll do that. But in general, I don't really follow trends. I mean, I follow them, but I don't do them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you don't live by them.
Right.
No, and it does make sense. It's also, I think it's also important to kind of, I don't know, maybe that's a fashion historian in me, like to kind of relive the history, or like rewrite the history of clothes, of different clothes that you find or you thrift. There is this, I don't know, I'm kind of like very proud of some pieces that I found that, I put in my archive.
Oh, yeah.
And and then, I mean, you're kind of rewriting it, and then you give it away to someone that you love, whether it's your child or, I don't know, maybe your sister, or maybe you put it back on the market. But there is that, I think this for me is more important than trends too, than in general.
I have a question about tailoring and mending. So how do you like? Because I know if you find something like you said with blazers, do you ever feel like, oh, if I just brought this in a little bit, this would be the perfect fit? And also, like, if you get a hole in something, do you mend it yourself? How do you go about tailoring and mending?
So usually I have more of like a YOLO mindset when it comes to stuff like that. I'll try it on in the store because I don't mind. Like I'm very petite, but I don't mind baggy clothes. Like I love baggy clothes. So if I buy something, like particularly with suiting, I love like the honestly, the bigger the blazer, the better. Now sometimes I have gone too far and the blazer's a bit too big. But so in that regard, if it's something simple, I might fix it myself. But thankfully I have my mom. She's always been my seamstress and my tailor. So if I need to fix something, I'll take it to my mom, be like, here, can you fix this? So that I can wear it. But 9 times out of 10, I do a lot of trying on in store and visualizing in store so that it minimizes room for, oh, I brought this home and it's too big and now I have to return it, or now I have to throw it in a giveaway pile. That also cuts down overconsumption. Like if you do, now granted, I know that's a lot harder to do in the pandemic. Like most fitting rooms are closed, but in general, that's like a metric that I've used to make sure that something is worth it for me.
Yeah. You like when you started out, especially when you go shopping secondhand, do you know your measurements? Did you measure yourself so that like when you go shopping, you're like, I know this is going to look right on me. I know my cut,
Yeah. I would definitely say that's a good idea. So even if you don't, now granted, I have experience now where I can look at something and pretty much know how it's going to fit on me because I know I'm a 29 waist and like a 33 hip, so generally having those measurements in mind when you go to the store, even if you don't have time to try things on, it comes in handy because it's like, okay, well, you can look at something. Okay, well, I know this is going to fit. As opposed to trying it and discovering it's actually 3 sizes too small, or if it's swimming on you, so knowing your measurements is important.
So it looks like we have a question from Chelsea, and
Okay.
she would like to know what Instagram or blogs do you follow or recommend?
Okay, so in general, for style inspiration, I love Ami Song. She's by far one of my favorite bloggers. AIMEESONG.
Yeah, can we write that down? Can we write that down?
Oh yeah.
Maybe on the group chat.
Should I type it out or?
I put it in it.
Okay. So Ami Song, that's her handle, Ami Song. She writes the Song of Style blog, but now she has like a Song of Style clothing line, but I still follow her personally for style inspiration. I also really like, as far as style goes, I follow Monroe Steele, MONROE, Steele, STEELE.
Okay.
She has really good style. Because I mostly follow blogs for style inspiration. So yeah, Monroe Steele, Ami Song. I'm trying to think of who I look at all the time. I also like High Low Lux. So like High, HIGHLOW, and then LUXXE.
Okay.
She buys a lot of her bags secondhand because I'm really into designer handbags, but I buy all of my designer handbags secondhand. So I go to her for advice on like what sites to buy from, what sites are better, and she also gives me styling inspiration. So I more so follow people for inspiration, if nothing else.
Who's like your style? I don't want to say icon, but that you've looked at.
Can you repeat the question?
Who's your style icon or someone that you've looked up to growing up?
That's a great question. So I've always really, as far as like fashion people go, I've always loved Naomi Campbell. I think her style is beautiful. Her runway shows are always amazing. Her looks are always amazing. So I grew up liking Naomi Campbell. I'm also a big Janet Jackson fan. I love, particularly like 90s era Janet Jackson. I love Janet Jackson. She was such a vibe, okay? With the midriffs and the high-waisted jeans and the belts. A vibe, okay? So Janet Jackson and Naomi Campbell.
Wow. Those are good ones. Those are ones that people don't really highlight as style icons, but it's like they're given to me that, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I don't feel so old anymore. Thank you. Because I grew up with all of those. Those things. Well, I mean, I think if we don't have any other question, Gabby, anything else that you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for that wonderful discussion and for all the tips. I think it's quite important to understand that we can all pursue an ethical closet without compromising on style and fashion. I think that's what's mostly important. And thank you girls for attending.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we were very happy to have you anyway. So until next month, which will be, I think, on fashion and identity in relation to a mural project that we are doing. We'll tell you more about it soon.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.